Hey guys, I'm really excited about this interview that I get to share with you today. I'm here with Clare Caldwell over in Rojales in Spain. And Claire has a somewhat familiar story, unfortunately, to a lot of us. She got a virus and it took her a really long time to recover. This was long before COVID, back when, many of us, myself included, were getting various viruses and, having these sort of post-viral ME/CFS conditions come out of it. But Claire's unfortunately declined into a really bad state of severe ME/CFS, where she was bedbound or in a wheelchair for much of her time while she was sick with this illness. But she did eventually fully recover. And one of the, besides this being such an amazing journey on its own, one of the things I think you'll really like about this one is that I've had a lot of people on this channel who I've interviewed who have recovered using the MindBody Reconnect program. And I've interviewed some of the many practitioners who do this amazing work. And Claire is the founder of the MindBody Connect program. So I'm so excited we have the source of it all here. So just such a great opportunity to get information and insights about how this all works. So Claire, thank you so much. It's really exciting to have you here today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me here. I really appreciate it, and all the work you're doing to help people know that there is a possibility of recovery from this. So that's wonderful. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, and we're obviously going to dive into the MindBody Reconnect program and what that's all about. But your journey with this has been just wow. So can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, it was quite interesting because I was working at a hospital in London, and I'd taken a year out unpaid leave to go travelling. And when I came back, I had a slightly different job in management, and it turned out my boss thought it was morally wrong that I should have had a year's unpaid leave, and basically bullied me and gaslighted me for, 8 months until I totally collapsed. At the time I was single and I needed the job and I loved the job. So I just thought, I'm strong, I can cope with this. I did try to set my boundaries, but when it's your boss and you need the job, single on your own in London, it was difficult. So me and I crashed. And after 3 months, I said to the doctor, I'm not getting any better. Maybe I should go back to work. And I went back part-time, got worse, for another year. And then basically got rescued. The manager of the other hospital knew what had happened. And he came to see me and said, I've got a job, I want you to work for me. And I think I said, are you mad? I'm bedbound. But he said, no, you're going to be fine. And he said, we'll set in place what you need. And I recovered almost fully. Then 3 years later, I was about to be managed by somebody who was I knew to be a bully, and I crashed and burned the Friday before. I should say that first time when I was experiencing distress, I was noticing with the first job, I was going downhill, getting very fatigued, and just very fatigued, I would say. Then I got a virus and just didn't recover from it. So then the second time, I just crashed and burned, even without a virus. And that went on for 15 years. I lost my job. And both times I noticed that when I actually couldn't drag myself around anymore and stopped work, that the symptoms got worse. And I thought that was curious at the time, particularly as I was thinking, well, this is stress. And if you're taken away from the stressful situation, surely you would recover, but I didn't. So saw many doctors down the years. I had a very supportive, by this time got married, had a very supportive husband and family and friends, moved to Scotland. And finally kind of realised that the answers weren't there in medicine. And I've had some amazing doctors, and Western medicine is awesome. It saved my life more than once, so I'm very grateful to it and the people who work in it. But when it comes to energy disorders, is what I would call this, they don't have the knowledge they need to help us recover. They don't understand it properly. So I realised I had to work it out for myself. I tried lots of different things. I think 16 different therapies, did all the supplementing, pacing, all the things that people do, and just didn't recover. Then I started to hear about Mickel therapy, which was in the north of Scotland, and people recovering. And I thought, I want that. So I went and did it and recovered, and then trained as a complementary therapist, and then went and trained in Mickel therapy. So I did that for many years, and I would like to thank Dr. Mickel for all his work, but he stepped out of it. He went back to work as a doctor. I'd also like to thank Kyle Davis, who worked in Mickel therapy at the time as well, who were awesome in this knowledge. So in the end, with Dr. Mickel moving on, I went and did a lot more training. I've worked in this for nearly 20 years. So I've worked with a lot of people. I've done it full time all that time. So thousands of people I've helped recover. You learn from everyone you work with. You know, they're your biggest source of learning. Also from learning to work with your own body, then continuing, what I've always done is researched what's the latest knowledge in that connection between the mind and the body. So I went and did Gabor Mate's course in compassionate inquiry right at the very beginning of it. So that was awesome learning. So what I did was I put this all together and created the MindBody Reconnect because I wanted it to say what it does. It's this disconnect between the mind and the body that creates our kind of illness. And so that's why I called it that. And lots of people who've been doing it wanted to train, so I trained them. So the wonderful thing is, at the MindBody Reconnect, I see it very much as, although I founded it, we're a group of people who've been ill in this way, worked through it using the knowledge and the tools and techniques, and want to help others. And what I see is that people coming in with lots of different knowledge, like Victoria that you've interviewed, and Veronica that you've interviewed. I'm thinking of Victoria or Solio. I've worked with her. There's all sorts of people I've worked with who are amazing in this work. So the people coming to work with me are bringing knowledge about the connection between the mind and the body from different angles, and we're all pooling the knowledge. And I see this very much as a very vital kind of therapy that's going to keep evolving and growing, you know, so that as new knowledge becomes available to us, we incorporate it to help people. So that's who we are, a group of people who've been ill, working to help others.
Yeah, I've recently spoke to a couple. I interviewed Claire, who works with your program. She had such an amazing story, and she's just so insightful and really incredible. I'll link it if people want to check it out. And really recently, I had Helen on the channel, who is also just wonderful. Her stories about Warren are worth listening to alone. So if you haven't seen it, I'll link that one as well. But they both just have some great strategies for approaching things. Yeah, it's amazing work.
Cool.
And very, very well done summing up decades of what was probably a nightmare.
It wasn't great, I have to say.
Not probably a nightmare. It was absolutely a nightmare. So concisely.
And that's the thing that, you know, it's so unfair, isn't it, the way people judge us? And they seem to think we're just like lounging about, enjoying not working, like as if. You know, I've yet to meet someone who enjoys any aspect of it at all. It just changes you. It changes the nature of your relationships with your loved ones. You know, people judge us. When I first got it, they called it yuppie flu. It's so rude. You know, it's just incredible.
I think we're moving away from this, but you know, a lot of people started to feel a bit invalidating too when we think about mind-body approaches to illness, like, oh, you couldn't have really been that sick to start with, or you didn't really have ME, or you didn't really have whatever, when, you know, how you were bedbound in a wheelchair, you know, sick for many, many years. Obviously, something was very wrong. There's a very real illness happening here. What did you do through that time did you always have hope that you were going to recover, or was there a point you ever just gave in?
I did always have hope, because the doctors are saying to you, you can't recover. And I just thought, you can't tell me that. Because there's research going on, surely, and surely at some point we'll work out what this is and how to cure it. So I just don't buy into that. I just never bought into that thinking, and I just kept searching. And I tried one therapy, it would seem like it'd help a bit, then I would crash again, and I'll just be a bit of a cry, boo. Then I pick myself up and go, right, I'm going to try something else. So I did just keep going. There was one point where I just thought, if this is my life, I don't know that I want it. And that scared me, because I knew that wasn't really the truth of it. I just didn't want to be living in that terrible state with symptoms. And mine evolved, like many people, evolved into fibromyalgia as well. So it was pain too, you know. So it's hard. And one morning I just thought, I'm not sure I want to be here if this is what it's going to be like. So I phoned the Samaritans, which is a helpline in the UK for people who are despairing and suicidal. And I just said, I don't think I want to take my life. I know I don't want to take my life, but it's not a life I want to live at the moment. And I said to them, one of the things I hate is not being useful, not being a useful member of society. So they said, why don't you volunteer? So I did. I volunteered, but not immediately. I said, maybe later. And I was a Samaritan for 10 years. So that was an amazing experience as well, because I spoke to so many people who got these symptoms, and that went on, for that 10 years. And it really helped me understand emotions better. It was an amazing experience. So, so I had a lot of things happen that helped me understand emotions better.
I think that's such an important thing. Many of us, unfortunately, get to a place where I think we very much want to live, but just the thought of a life of eternal suffering is more than we can, be at peace with. And then when we have people telling us that we're not going to recover, someone I interviewed said, straight up, that's a lie. There's no way anyone can say that, because ask that same person to explain exactly what it is that's happening in your body right now, and they won't be able to. So how could they possibly know what your future holds? And for a long time, it was easy to buy into that, before the internet, before we started sharing all these stories. And, but now we see people are recovering from very severe conditions like yourself, very long-term conditions like yourself. So I think it's really important. Imagine if in those moments we had given up, all that we would have missed out in our life.
I know.
So it's just, I'm just grateful that all of us, find ways to keep going and find that hope, so that, especially like yourself, now you're helping thousands of people. The ripple effect of your healing, I think, is impossible to measure.
Yeah. And it's a wonderful thing, and it gives me joy to talk to people that at the beginning of their journey, they're in a terrible place, and at the end, they're out, they're living, they're having babies, they're doing all sorts of things that they couldn't have done otherwise. It just gives us such joy. All of us feel the same in this world.
So you talked about emotions, which can be a complicated thing to understand. So how does that play into all of this?
So what I've learned to understand, Dr. Gabor Mate talked about 3 levels of knowledge in the body. He talks about the mind, the heart, and the gut. And I talk about 2, the mind, and so I talk about the thinking brain and the emotional brain. So the thinking brain is where we've learned to mainly inhabit. We live in this era of Descartesian kind of thinking, I think, therefore I am, which to me is crazy. It should be I think and I feel. In fact, I feel and I think, therefore I am. But we still value logic and thinking above emotions. And there's still this thing about we should be in control of our emotions. So there's a lot of people doing research into this. The Heart Math Institute, they've looked at the heart, and they're saying it isn't just a pump. It's actually got its own brain, which is called it's an area of tissue they call the heart brain. And what they've realised is the heart has got ways of communicating with the brain and the body. Also, the gut is being called the second brain because the enteric nervous system is sufficiently complex to be classed as a separate brain. So the heart and the brain the heart and the gut brain are producing information all the time, picking up on what's going on for us. And in everyday life, we would call it our instincts or our intuition. We call it authentic emotions, which Gabor Mate also uses the same term. So authentic emotions tell the authentic truth of our situation. And these authentic emotions arise before thoughts, and they're our guide as to what's happening to us in our lives, which we are meant to listen to and try and respond to appropriately. Our brain has got lots of circuits in it, particularly the circuits for pain. And what's been discovered in neuroscience is that the circuits that pick up on physical pain also react to emotional pain. So my distress at being bullied was interpreted, as pain, and it expressed itself as pain in my body. So my body was saying, there's an intolerable situation you need to take stock of, and it wanted me to try and work out. That's where the thinking brain comes in, the logic comes in. How do I feel? What is it that's going on here that may be good for me, in which case carry on, or not good for me, in which case what is it that's not good? What do I need to change? Maybe just tweak something small. What is it I need to do differently in order that my brain perceives that I'm safe and that my life is good for me? Because that's the role of the emotional brain, is to make sure your life is safe and good. All the good stuff, all that makes life worth living. The role of the thinking brain should be more subservient, actually, to the emotional brain, but we don't like to think like that. We don't like to believe that the emotional brain could be more important. But it actually contains vital information, and we don't even know where it all comes from. We know we're energy, in that we have overlapping energy fields, and it's been seen that information passes between our energy fields when we interact with people. Like you go into a room, you can feel if there's been an argument, you can feel the energy of that, or it doesn't feel good. Or you meet someone, you go, oh, they feel lovely, I'd really love to get to know them. You're picking up on their energy. So energy, emotions are energy, are much more important than we thought. What's also important is the two types of emotions. And most people don't know that. And that's really where medicine is particularly falling down, and we fall down. So what we know now is there are two types of emotions: the authentic emotions that rise before thought, and they are our guide to help us create a safe, happy life. But our thinking brain can also generate emotions, which we call thought-generated emotions. Authentic emotions always tell the truth, but they're not clear because it's not words like our thoughts. Once we start thinking about a situation and the brain starts generating thought-generated emotions, they may or may not be true. So I'll give you a quick example to explain that. So I would go out to the shops and my best friend walks past me looking the other way. I go, so the immediate response is, oh, surprise or hurt. My best friend just walked past me looking the other way. So that's the authentic emotion, surprise or hurt. So then I start thinking, what just happened there? Did my friend just not see me, or is she ignoring me? Do you know what? Did what she does. She does this all the time. She's annoyed with me. I might have said something inadvertently that upset her. She doesn't say. She just sulks and she doesn't talk to me. And I'm annoyed about that. So now what I'm doing is I'm winding myself up. I'm generating thought-generated emotion. And it may be true that she's doing that. She's ignoring me on purpose. But it could be that she's just distracted. So what I need to do is check my facts. So I would maybe text my friend and say, hi, was that you in town? And hopefully she texts back, yeah, were you there? I didn't see you. So now we've listened well and we've responded appropriately to that original authentic emotion. But once you get into that overthinking, we can wind ourselves up. What we need to do is step back and ask ourselves, hang on a minute, what's the truth of this situation? Because we need to work with the authentic emotion rather than thought-generated emotion. That makes sense.
That is fascinating. I've never heard that explained that way, and it makes so much sense.
Uh-huh.
It's a lot to wrap your head around, and I think all of us, myself included, are starting to get there and appreciate that all of this is happening. I think where, some of us get stuck, like, okay, my brain's doing all of this. It's a protective mechanism. Why is my brain making me so sick to protect me? How is this? What's happening there?
Absolutely. And that was a question that I kept asking because, once you understand this, it's like it's connected to old survival circuits in the brain. And it's definitely about our higher goods, and it's to protect us. So why would the mechanism that's meant to protect us make us so sick? And it is because we haven't understood to listen to it properly. The emotional brain, first of all, generates authentic emotions, which are generally accompanied by sensation. Say butterflies in our stomach, or a warm feeling when something nice happens, or you might get a sinking feeling in your heart. It's something, oh no, I'm concerned about this. So their emotions are accompanied with sensation. If we don't listen well or respond to that appropriately, then the emotional brain will generate symptoms of illness to get our attention. It does not mean to make us ill. That's not the intention. It's just got a limited way of getting our attention. It speaks with emotion. It shouts. It raises its voice by generating symptoms of illness. Can't speak in thoughts. If it did, we'd be nuts. You'd have two voices going on in your head. So, and maybe that's what, when people do hear voices, possibly there's a short circuit, who knows, remains to be seen. So we're meant to listen and respond to that. If we don't, then the emotional brain moves to generating symptoms of illness. But we've only been taught to think of symptoms of illness as a malfunction or a disease, that something's gone wrong in the body, because that's how medicine views all symptoms of illness. There's something wrong, there's malfunction, there's tissue damage, or there's a disease. And they think that the way around that is rest and medication. So we think that too. So when our emotional brain generates symptoms of illness like unnatural fatigue to get our attention, we go, oh, I've overdone it, I need to rest. Then our emotional brain will go, no, that wasn't what I wanted. So it will send more and more and more. It will keep doing it because it's trying to get our attention. Mm-hmm. And in the end, we get kind of tipped into what I call the symptom state, which is these illnesses, ME, CFS, irritable bowel syndrome, fibromyalgia, FND, functional neurological disorder. There's all sorts of things, anxiety states, depression, long COVID. There's all sorts of things we get tipped into. And then we think that we are ill. We go to our doctors. They say, you're ill, you need to rest, take some medication, manage your symptoms. These are the things they tell us. And our emotional mind is going, no, I'm trying to get your attention to alert you that you need to say no to that, or, yes to this, or it's actually trying to guide us to create a life that best meets our needs. And it will keep doing it until we understand. So the way out of this is to learn to listen to those authentic emotions and learn to respond to those appropriately, because when we do, our emotional brain doesn't need to send symptoms.
Yeah, that I used to think, when I think back to when I got sick, I didn't listen to my emotions, my body, or anything at all. And I think about it now, kind of an oversimplification, but I think of my body was like a car, and I was driving down the road and the low gas light came on, and then the check engine light came on, and I ignored it. And then maybe there's a camera detecting some sort of danger up ahead, and I ignored it. And then, the car is just like, you're not listening. The only way I can keep you safe is just to like stop the car.
Yeah.
It's just, I think it's because it is a tough thing. Like how you're going through such a world of suffering. How would my brain, my body be doing this to myself? But it doesn't seem logical or rational, but it's not trying to be rational. It's just trying to keep you safe. It's trying to keep you alive. And it's using the methods that it has. Yeah.
And the one thing that helped me see that was that I read a paper by Joseph Ledoux, and it was called, I can't remember the exact title, but it was something like Rethinking the Role of the Emotional Brain. And he talked about survival circuits in the brain. And that was a real light bulb moment for me, because I just thought, that's why we end up in the symptom state. Because in the end, our emotional brain says, better off safe in your cave, in effect, alive, albeit it's damp in there and dark and it's not very pleasant, and you're not out there meeting people and doing nice things, but better off alive. And there's the possibility for you to learn how to listen to me and respond to me appropriately, because it's saying better off safe in your cave than out there in the world potentially getting injured or even killed because you're not listening, you're not safe.
Yeah, that is perfect. That is better than my car analogy. I'm switching to that one.
Although I do use the car analogy as well, because I call the thinking brain the driver and the emotional brain the navigator. But the drivers will say, just shut up, will you? Shut up, go, get in the back. So we need both. We need the driver, we need the navigator.
Yeah. So it sort of seems like our emotional brain is trying to send us all these messages. But how do we decode that? Or what does it actually want from us?
The emotional brain has absolutely got our best interests at heart. And I kind of liken it to having the wisest grandparents inside you that have really lived a long time. They're really wise. They love you with all their hearts. And they know you inside out. They've known you from the moment you were born. And they absolutely want the best for you. So that's what the emotional brain is. And it's why it's a tragedy, really, that we get cut off from that. So if you think about having this very wise guide inside you, and what would it want? Well, can you imagine if somebody behaved badly towards you? You're going to go, what? How dare they? So your emotional brain wants you to be treated well. It wants you to be treated kindly, thoughtfully, caring, with care and compassion. We won't always be, of course, but generally that's what it wants, you to have people like that in your life. And if you're not being treated properly, if you're being treated thoughtlessly, unkindly, uncaringly, ill in any way, it can be big, little, meant or not meant, our emotional brain wants us to say no. It wants us to set our boundaries. That's not easy to do because the people this happens to are sensitive, we're kind. We don't find it easy to set our boundaries, but that sensitivity is a good thing, but we don't find it easy to do that. The second thing is that it wants us to create a life that we love to live, that we enjoy to live, using our gifts, our skills, our talents, surrounding ourselves with people that get us, love us, make it fun to be here. The emotional brain loves fun, it really does. And of course, symptoms are the opposite of fun, the absolute opposite. And also, what the emotional brain doesn't want is for us to get too much into overthinking. It wants us to relatively quickly notice how we feel, work out if action is necessary, and as comfortably quickly as possible take that action. And the action should be constructive, kind. In my work, I've introduced a thing called the 3 C's. So it's be curious about what's going on, about what's happening, about how you feel. Be compassionate towards the situation, the person. That doesn't mean to say we accept unfair or unkind or thoughtless treatment. And then constructive action, take constructive action. So that's basically what the emotional brain wants for us, to be treated well, to enjoy our gifts and skills and talents. My mum had this beautiful thing. She used to say, everybody in this world is a force for good. And that's what it wants us to be a force for good in this world. It's all the things in us that we admire, that kind of love, compassion, kindness. But that doesn't mean to say you put up with rubbish. It doesn't want us to do that. But if there's rubbish going on, it wants us to set our boundaries in a compassionate and constructive way.
What an amazing thing. That was just so comforting to hear you explain that we have something in us that wants this for us and is trying to take care of us. Very helpful to understand. So the MindBody Reconnect program, who would best benefit from this, and what does it look like once you get involved in this?
Cool. Hopefully it says what it does on the tin. For so many of us, there's this disconnect between the mind and the body. Gabor Mate talks about when we're born with that need for authenticity, the connection to your authentic self, to the grandparents, but also our connection to our caregivers. And if there's anything that goes wrong there, which it often does, not on purpose necessarily, but our parents don't know about the emotional brain. They don't know how to work with it. So if we feel we're not seen properly or not being treated properly by our teachers, our caregivers, then we disconnect from our emotional brain. So we need to reconnect with that. So that's what our program is designed to do. So first of all, we explain about the mind and the body, the emotional brain, the thinking brain, the way they need to work together as a team. That's what's meant. So we explain that, and we know a lot of science about that because people need that. They need to know that we're not just putting out some sort of woo-woo stuff, although there's a place for woo-woo stuff as well, I think, in this world. But we're very much into the science of it. What is the neuroscience? What's the biology? And bring this understanding of there's a part of us that needs us to care for ourselves maybe in a different way. So anyone who's been diagnosed basically with any of those disorders, ME, CFS, fibromyalgia, postpartum fatigue syndrome, long COVID, any of those things, anxiety, depression, then if you've had the normal reasons for those symptoms excluded, then really what you need to do is say, okay, so this is the disconnect between my mind and my body. So the program is designed to educate, give that information, then the tools to actually reconnect and guide them to people to help them do that. And ultimately our job is to make ourselves redundant with each person we work with, because what we want to do is people to become their own expert in their own connection between their mind and their body and how to work with it in their life. We're all unique, we've got unique situations, but it works in a similar way for everybody. So that's how we're able to help so many people, by having that basic knowledge. And it also helps in being true to ourselves, because we're able to talk from that position of knowledge of, well, when it happened to me, this is what I tried, or I've worked with lots of people, that's what they tried. And that's what I do. So the training course is to become a practitioner is over 9 months long, but you carry on learning and being supervised for a lot longer than that. But what I do is I share all the knowledge I've gained in the last 20 or 30 years. And so that people, when they start working as a practitioner, they know their own journey, but they're also hitting the ground running. And we're incorporating any knowledge they've got into this as well. So that's how we do it. And you would meet initially weekly and then bi-week every second week until you recover. Some people, it takes 8 to 12 sessions. Some people, it takes longer. You know, I've got someone who, when I first talked to her 2 years, she literally, I saw her briefly for like 10 seconds. And then what I was doing was recording sessions for her, and she was listening to them 3 minutes at a time over a period of a few weeks, because she was having to wear a blindfold and ear defenders. She couldn't stand sound. She couldn't stand light. You know, she was just living in a darkened room. I spoke to her this morning. She's camping. She's camping. It was just awesome to see her. I was like, wow. But it's taken 2 years to get to that point. But she was extremely severely affected by symptoms. So, yeah. But we spread it out over that long period of time.
This is so incredible. And as you're talking, I'm thinking this was available when I was sick. I just didn't know about it, which is
I know
why I'm so grateful that we have, you know, growing spaces where we can share this stuff, because there's so many people, you know, and as you've said before this interview, you appreciate that there isn't, you know, a one size fits all program for everybody. Not saying that, you know, this is, but a lot of these programs are helping so many people, and there's a lot of people who are suffering that don't need to be, they just aren't aware. So yeah, really grateful for this.
That's it. And I really echo that there's many different approaches to recovery. I think the main thing is to understand that your body will produce symptoms, and it has a purpose. We're not ill in the traditional sense of the word. And I really think that we need to start thinking in terms of two types of illness. One is there is a malfunctional disease. You do go to your doctor with that. And the other is our emotional brain using symptoms of illness to alert us. There are things that are hurting us emotionally that we need to do differently, could be physically as well. But, you know, we need to think in terms of two different sources of symptoms of illness. And I don't refer to this as an illness. I refer to it as having symptoms of illness, and that they are communication.
I am just so grateful for all of this information. I've actually been thinking, and people watching, tell me if you would think this is helpful. I was thinking of asking someone from my amazing team that helps me make this channel possible, Hansla and Irina primarily, if they could generate a transcript, because I would just want to go back and just review it all, because you shared so many solid things. And I know, I think they say we retain 20% of what we learn or something, which I'm like, I cannot afford to not retain 80% of this. So if you're watching, I know some people absorb things better through written format. So if having some transcripts included in the video description would be helpful, please let me know in the comments, and I will definitely look into doing that, because I know I would find it helpful, but see if anybody else does.
I learned that way.
Yeah.
Thank you. And thank you for all you're doing. And if ever I can, because I'm really happy to put this information out in many different ways. So I'd be happy if there's more I can do to share the knowledge. I'm really happy. If you wanted to do that another time, I can add more.
Yeah, and people watching too, let me know if you'd like to have Clare back in the future, because I think we only shared a very small amount of her insight and her knowledge on this. And I was saying, you know, people come to me and ask me to come speak now at different online summits and things on these topics. And I think, you know, I guess I've learned things, but people like Clare really are the experts. So yeah, I'd love to have you back one day, and I'm sure other people would too. But overall, just a massive thank you. I know you're busy. You're running a very big program. I just appreciate you taking the time to speak with my audience, and just for everything that you're doing to support people. This has been pure gold. I'm really grateful for you, Clare. So thank you.
And I'm really grateful for what you're doing, because that's not my forte. I wanted the knowledge to get out there, but it isn't my forte. So it's wonderful that you're doing it, and other people as well. Thank you.
Yeah, oh, absolutely my honor. And as always, to those of you watching, sending really big hugs to you. I hope that you are making out okay. I know this can be really, really challenging, to put it mildly. But good for you for watching videos like this and for watching till the end. You're looking, you're researching, you're not giving up, which I think is the most important thing. So thank you for watching. I look forward to your comments. Another way too, if this is a lot to take in, I put out weekly newsletters that summarize my interviews. So just the key takeaways of what people are sharing, because it's really hard, I know, to take them all in. So if you haven't signed up, there's a link in the video description. So yeah, thank you again, Claire. Thank you to those of you who are watching.
Welcome.
I'll link on the screen here, interview I did with Alice, who is one of the MindBody Reconnect practitioners, and she's just amazing and had so many great insights as well. So if this content speaks to you, you're going to like this one as well.
She's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really wonderful.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. That's it. Thank you to those of you watching. I hope you enjoy this. I hope you got something out of it. And I hope to see you in this next video with Claire.